Now we do Germany, because the country has donated 300 million euros, mostly to UN agencies, to help countries that are particularly vulnerable now during the coronavirus pandemic. The country has also announced what it is calling a rapid and targeted action in numerous African countries in an effort of solidarity in these hard times. One of the projects is in Ghana. Others are in Malawi and Benin. We'll focus on what's happening here in Ghana. But Thomas Sparrow is here from Berlin with more. And he joins me. We'll start by asking what exactly is this 300 million. Thomas, it's good to have you. What exactly is this 300 million targeted at? Is it, would you say, a response, for example, to President Donald Trump's position that he will not support countries for organizations like WHO? Has it anything to do with it at all?
Hello, Gifty. Nice to talk to you this time from our studios in the heart of Berlin. And as you mentioned correctly, Germany has donated that money to the UN mostly, although other organizations, other international aid organizations as well. And it is actually a response to a petition and to a warning by the United Nations that a lot of money is needed. In fact, they said it was around, a lot of money is needed essentially to help those countries that are most vulnerable from the coronavirus. Basically countries that are, for example, war-torn or have been affected by a conflict, or also populations that are at risk, for example, migrants, asylum seekers, refugees. And as such, most of the money is going to organizations within the United Nations framework that have to deal with these kinds of issues. So the World Food Programme, for example, the WHO also as well, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, another organization that is receiving money from this. But again, this is only part of what United Nations has said that it needs to be able to help countries that are most vulnerable and that will be particularly affected by the coronavirus outbreak. But this was news that actually came yesterday on Sunday here in Germany. Important news because Germany has said that solidarity, international solidarity, is particularly important at this time. And that's one of the elements why Germany has also focused on this aspect of solidarity in a multilateral framework. Right. So essentially not only giving the money on its own, but making sure that that money flows through the United Nations and through United Nations organizations, and then through those organizations to the countries that are most affected.
Interesting, because also experts have said that no one country can deal with this on their own. So the world solidarity is very necessary. But Thomas, let's talk about this rapid and targeted action in Africa. What exactly does it entail? And is it different from this donation that's going to the UN and its organizations?
It is different, Gifty, and this also responds to something that you and I have discussed on various occasions here on this program, that idea that Germany, but also Europe as a whole, has to work hand in hand with Africa. And there have been different developments in this area. And now, obviously, when we're talking about the coronavirus issue, a global issue per definition, an absolutely important issue everywhere in the world, and Germany also believes that it's important to share expertise, to discuss different issues, and wherever possible to try and help. You mentioned some of the areas in Africa where Germany has been trying to help. I can give you some more details on that. For example, Malawi, help from Germany trying to set up isolation wards for COVID-19 patients. In Benin, for example, training laboratory staff, and in particular the case that we discussed on Ghana, it refers to the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research in Tropical Research. And the support there is particularly to modernize the facilities and to procure medical equipment and medical facilities. The goal behind all that is to increase testing capacity. That's something that was revealed by German authorities, in particular by the German Foreign Ministry, as one concrete key example of how Germany in this particular situation, in this global challenge that we're talking about, can actually help particular countries around the world.
Well, we also know that there's been some secondment, staff on secondment, we understand, from Germany who have been working at the Kumasi Center for the Research. So that's a good thing. And it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out. Hopefully, with the days coming along, you'll be able to give us a breakdown of exactly what it is. But today, you are not at home. You are in office. You are in the office, Thomas. Have the restrictions been finally totally eased?
No, they haven't been totally eased. The reason why we're here today is because step by step, very carefully, Germany is indeed easing some of its restrictions. Only very few of those restrictions, or most of the restrictions, are actually still in place. Social distancing measures, and in fact, there are new, in a way, restrictions that have been added, because as of today, as of this week, all 16 German federal states have a compulsory requirement for Germans to wear face masks on public transport. And as of this week, in most German federal states, people also have to wear face masks when shopping, when going into different shops. That has to obviously do with the fact that some of the other restrictions have been slowly eased, whether we're talking about the reopening of certain shops or the gradual reopening of schools, measures like that. But we can certainly not say that Germany has now eased absolutely everything and that Germany is back to normal. On the contrary, most of the most important restrictions are still in place. The social distancing, as I mentioned, or restaurants still being closed, museums still being closed. There's a big discussion here as to when all this can and should happen. So when should, for example, restaurants or museums or the big institutions open? When mass events should be allowed? This is a very big discussion here in Germany, but as of now, Germany has maintained that there is a need for a gradual, very careful reopening, very careful also easing of those restrictions. And it has to be careful, Gifty, because there is also a concern that if you do it too quickly, then people will obviously go out and continue with their lives as normally as possible, and that could then lead to numbers going up. And this is something that Germany, and by the way, other countries that have taken similar measures, are trying not only to analyze, but to prevent. On the one hand, they do want slowly, step by step, to go back to normal. But on the other hand, they want to make sure that only happens if numbers continue to go down and if the health system in the respective country is still obviously in good condition and under no circumstance overwhelmed.
Careful and slow easing of restrictions. Well, I tell you what, we have a few similarities here. Here in Ghana, it's also sort of mandatory to wear face masks, but that's for government institutions say, and private institutions are all saying, we will not admit you if you're not wearing a mask. So it's interesting to know that we share this. Hopefully the world will get better and there won't be any more madness. Thomas, thank you so much for coming through this afternoon. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners DW, joining us all the way from Berlin. Well, this is what's happening on the world front. What are you doing? Well, here in Ghana, we are trying as much as possible to ensure that people wear face masks. In Germany, like he said, people are it's mandatory to wear it, especially if you're going on a public bus, for example.